living legend in the world of boxing, the greatest boxer of his generation. Many people draw the line and say he is the greatest boxer of all time, mentioned at the line.
Terence Crawford to the ring, and Crawford now makes his big entrance to this huge... He was kicked out of 5 schools for fighting. I wonder what that... All around the arena, people standing up to take their own videos. And
introducing the undefeated, the one and only Floyd Mayweather.
Terence "Bud" Crawford.
A potential showdown between Saul, Canelo, Alvarez and Terence "Bud" Crawford is every boxing fan's dream, but right now, it remains just that, a dream. After 3 days filled with chaos, speculation, and quiet talks behind closed doors, the much-anticipated fight on September 13th at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas has not yet been confirmed. However, assuming both fighters sign the deal in the next few weeks, this could not only be one of the biggest fights of 2025 but also one of the most precarious blockbusters since Mayweather vs Pacquiao. Here's an update on the situation, along with the 5 major concerns already swirling around this fight before Canelo can focus on Crawford and the Allegiant Stadium showdown. He first has to survive a significant and risky challenge in May, a fight against the undefeated IBF super middleweight champion, William Skull. On the surface, this matchup is being promoted as a typical Cinco de Mayo showcase for Canelo. However, behind the scenes, this is anything but a routine fight. Skull may not be widely recognized outside hardcore boxing circles, but he's no slouch. The Cuban-born German fighter recently earned a tough victory over Vladimir Shishkin and now holds the very title Canelo vacated to pursue a more lucrative fight with Edgar Berlanga. Skull is hungry, validated, and carrying momentum, factors that make this more than just a tune-up fight for Canelo. The added pressure of facing a megastar like Canelo turns this into a high-risk, high-stakes situation. Here's where things get tricky. Canelo desperately needs that IBF title back. Regaining the strap would restore his undisputed status at 168 pounds, adding more significance to a potential fight with Crawford. However, boxing rarely goes as planned. If the Skull fight extends into deep rounds, or if there are any setbacks like cuts, injuries, or controversial decisions, it could jeopardize everything scheduled for September. At this point in his career, Canelo isn't getting any younger, and any hard-fought battle could take a toll on his body that recovery alone may not heal. There's also the issue of the political side of the sport. Skull is a mandatory challenger, and sanctioning bodies don't appreciate champions bypassing their obligations. If Canelo puts in a subpar performance or takes any damage, the negotiations with Crawford could stall, be altered, or even fall apart completely. This isn't just any fight, it's a potential landmine beneath the entire superfight plan. One bad move in May could derail everything. A $150 million mega fight could disappear in an instant. Despite Terence "Bud" Crawford's incredible skills in the ring, his pinpoint precision, remarkable switch hitting, and mental mastery, time is not on his side. Since 2020, Crawford has fought only once a year, a trend that speaks to both boxing's fractured politics and his own career choices. Although his victories, especially the dominant performance against Errol Spence Jr., have been spectacular, the growing gaps between his fights are hard to ignore. At 37 years old, Crawford is older than Canelo, less active, and stepping into unfamiliar physical territory. After competing most recently at 154 pounds, Crawford now plans to jump all the way to 168, a division where the stakes are higher, the punches are harder, and the competition is tougher. This isn't just a matter of moving up 2 weight classes, it's a challenge against biology itself, not just boxing strategy. Fighters typically struggle when they jump an entire weight division, especially in their late 30s, when reflexes slow down and recovery takes longer. Even with a proper training camp, this transition won't be simple. It's not only about building muscle, it's about re-engineering a body that has relied on quick reflexes, timing, and balance. At heavier weights, punches come slower but hit with much more force. The question becomes, will Crawford still possess the counterpunching genius at 168 that he had at 147, or will the added weight dull his reactions enough for Canelo to land those crucial blows? Then there's the mental toll of inactivity. Boxers thrive on rhythm, and time away from the ring impacts more than just conditioning, it affects timing, awareness, and the overall feel of the fight. Crawford's instincts are top tier, but instincts can erode when not regularly sharpened. Stepping into the biggest fight of his life after a long break will weigh heavily on him, both physically and psychologically. Crawford has built his legacy by defying expectations, overcoming political barriers, and shutting down champions. However, this next step isn't just historic, it's physically unprecedented in modern boxing. And without a warm-up fight at super middleweight to test the waters, he's heading straight into a high-stakes clash. The real question isn't whether Crawford is still great, it's whether greatness can endure the weight. Let's set aside the hype for a moment and ask the uncomfortable question, why now? For years, Canelo Alvarez has downplayed the idea of fighting Terence Crawford, citing the obvious size difference. In 2023, Canelo said, he has everything to gain and nothing to lose, emphasizing that the risk-to-reward ratio simply didn't make sense. So what changed? 2 words, Turki Al-Sheikh. The Saudi advisor and power broker behind Riyadh season has shaken up the combat sports world with high-stakes matchmaking. The reported $150 million offer for Canelo to fight Crawford might have been too tempting to turn down, even for a fighter who has already made generational wealth. When you're being offered more for one night than you've earned in multiple title defenses, even the most proud champions take notice. But money isn't the only factor. Behind the scenes, Canelo has been playing a much bigger game, positioning himself not just as boxing's biggest star, but as its next mogul. His promotional ventures are already yielding results, managing up-and-coming talent in the sport, like Teofimo Lopez and former opponent Jamie Munguia. Canelo Alvarez has shifted his focus beyond just collecting titles, he's now after control. A win over Terence "Bud" Crawford wouldn't just silence the critics or add another trophy to his collection, it would significantly boost his value as a promoter, brand, and power player. The more historic his in-ring legacy becomes, the more leverage he gains at the negotiating table with networks, sponsors, and fellow fighters. This mirrors the blueprint laid out by Oscar de la Hoya, who used the latter part of his career to build a business empire. While the public may see this as a super fight for legacy, the deeper question is this about proving something inside the ring or about building something outside of it? In his prime at 147 pounds, Crawford was untouchable, cutting through champions with precision, shifting stances mid-fight, and dismantling opponents both mentally and physically. But when we last saw him at 154 pounds, the aura started to shift. He was still dominant, but the margin for error became much slimmer. Now, the ask is unprecedented, jumping from junior middleweight to full-fledged super middleweight, skipping an entire division to face one of the hardest-hitting, most experienced champions of this era. Even Crawford has admitted the challenge. As he told Boxing Scene, "I walk around heavier than people think, but it's different when you've got a fight there." And he's right. Walking around at 170 pounds isn't the same as fighting elite-level rounds at 168, especially against someone like Canelo, who has been. Crawford's success is built on subtlety, not brute force. His skill set relies on lightning-fast reactions, fluid rhythm changes, and precise timing. At 168, where punches come slower but land with much more power, and clinch strength becomes critical, Crawford's entire style will be put to the test. Can he maintain his speed while adding mass? Will his movement be affected? Will his stamina hold up in the championship rounds with a re-engineered frame? The cautionary tale here is Roy Jones Jr., who moved up to heavyweight and made history but ultimately shattered his own body. Once he dropped back down, he was never the same. Could Crawford, at age 37, be on the verge of making the same mistake? Without a warm-up fight at 168 pounds, he's essentially going from elite technician to scientific experiment in a matter of months. There's no going back if this gamble doesn't work out. This fight might be a once-in-a-generation spectacle, but it's also a traffic jam for 2 entire weight classes, and that ripple effect is already being felt throughout the sport. Let's start at 154 pounds, where Crawford was just 1 win away from potentially unifying the division. A matchup with WBC and WBO champion Sebastian Fundora was on the horizon, followed by a winter showdown with Bakram Murtazaliev, a path that could have made Crawford the first male fighter in boxing's 4-belt era to become undisputed in 3 divisions. Now, that legacy-defining pursuit is on hold, possibly never to be revisited if the Canelo fight dominates his 2025 calendar. At 168 pounds, the situation is even messier. Canelo's path was already congested before Crawford entered the picture. David Benavidez, arguably the most avoided fighter in the division, has been pushing for a shot at Canelo for years. Up-and-coming stars like Diego Pacheco and Christian Billy are making their presence known. And mandatory challengers like William Skull, who is already scheduled to fight Canelo in May, are adding more complexity to an already packed weight class. At 175 pounds, the stakes reach new heights if Dimitri Bivol defeats Artur Beterbiev in their scheduled February rematch for light heavyweight supremacy. A historic rematch with Canelo for undisputed status could be next, but only if Canelo gets past Terence Crawford unscathed. Here's the issue: if anything delays or derails the Canelo-Crawford fight, whether it's an injury, contract dispute, or simply boxing's inherent unpredictability, 2 entire weight classes and several contenders could be left waiting for months, or even a year, before the landscape resets. It's a classic paradox in boxing: to create one legendary moment, the rest of the sport might have to come to a standstill. This is where business and boxing collide. According to multiple insiders, when Canelo's team first discussed the idea of a fight with Crawford, they allegedly floated a $150 million price tag, not as a negotiation starting point, but as a deterrent. It was a financial firewall, a polite way of saying, this fight isn't happening. The sum was more than Canelo made for his bouts against Golovkin, Plant, or Bivol, signaling that he wasn't truly interested in stepping into the ring with a smaller, faster opponent who could make him look bad, even in victory. It was a bluff, a financial escape hatch. But then came Turki Alshik, the mastermind behind Saudi Arabia's combat sports revolution, armed with an oil-backed budget that only sovereign wealth can provide. Alshik didn't negotiate, he matched the number instantly. Suddenly, a fight that seemed impossible became real, backed by a check too large for even Canelo to refuse. Was this legacy manipulation disguised as matchmaking? A clever way for Canelo to accept a high-risk fight only if the financial rewards made it risk-proof? Or was it simply genius-level chess, forcing boxing's biggest payday to set the terms? No matter how you frame it, Canelo is about to be paid like it's Mayweather's peak season, and for better or worse, this deal is rewriting the rules of matchmaking. As anticipation builds, so do the warnings, especially from those who've been through the grind. Timothy Bradley, a former 2-division champion and now a respected analyst, offered one of the most sobering takes on what Crawford is walking into. He's not going to back down, Bradley said about Crawford. And that's what scares me. Canelo is naturally strong and has been at this weight class for a long time. In other words, it's not just about skills, it's about survival. Crawford's genius lies in his ability to adapt mid-fight, but he's also a fighter who loves to engage when challenged. Against Canelo, who throws bricks disguised as body shots and has mastered the art of cutting off the ring, that bravado could turn into a trap. If Crawford tries to trade in the pocket with a natural super middleweight who's knocked out light heavyweights, it could be lights out early. One moment of pride, one miscalculation, and the fight could be over before Crawford even settles into his rhythm. The question is, can Crawford stay disciplined, or will he get drawn into a shootout with the bull? When the greats can't agree, you know the fight is real. From heavyweight icons to recent champions, the boxing world is buzzing with hot takes, and no consensus in sight. Mike Tyson, Canelo's too strong. Crawford's great, but size matters in boxing. Shakur Stevenson, but is too smart. He would figure Canelo out late. Teddy Atlas, this could end like Brook versus Golovkin. Andre Ward, Crawford's movement and ring IQ could give Canelo nightmares. Roy Jones Jr., Canelo's pressure and power would eventually break Crawford down. It's rare to see legends split this evenly, especially across weight classes and generations, but that's what makes this fight so combustible. It's a clash of styles, eras, narratives, and legacies. One punch could decide it. One round could flip the script. We're still 7 months out, and boxing history has taught us to stay cautious. A bad cut in training, a contract snag, or a change of heart from either camp could derail the entire event. After all, we've seen bigger fights fall apart for smaller reasons. Just think of Wilder versus Joshua in 2018. But if this thing holds together, if both fighters stay healthy, if the contracts are signed, if May's warm-up bouts don't throw a wrench into the machine, then what we're looking at isn't just the biggest boxing event of 2025. It could be the biggest real fight since Mayweather versus Pacquiao. No exhibitions, no YouTubers, no gimmicks, just two all-time greats from two different divisions, meeting at the edge of their physical and mental limits. It's greatness chasing greatness, and it doesn't come around often. So now it's your turn. Who really wins this fight? Is Canelo playing high-stakes chess, or is he avoiding a dangerous fight? Will Crawford's body betray him at 168, or will he pull off the impossible? Drop your predictions below and circle September 13th, because if this one lands, history won't just be made, it will be rewritten.